All right, so I'm doing this blind. Normally, I'm upstairs with my screen right here and then a monitor. I can see everything that's happening, but I'm down here. So we'll see. Hopefully, this is actually recording. Consider subscribing. The reason I'm making this video is I don't want to say I got, but I didn't read. And yes, I know reading is fundamental, and
You made a mistake.
normally I do read. But in this specific instance, I think I got a little overexcited, maybe even a little overconfident, and I thought I knew what I was buying, and I didn't buy it. I recommended it for a friend, which was even worse. If it were just me, I'd be like, oh well, oh well, and return it or not or whatever and move on. But because I was recommending it for a friend, I felt bad, you know. So the story, and I know you're looking at a blank screen right now, so I apologize. But the backstory is a friend of mine has a flat screen TV like most of us, and for some reason, every HDMI port just stopped working. There were two on the back, and there's one on the side. The two on the back, she'd plug in she was using an NVIDIA Shield, and it just wouldn't work. The port on the side was misformed for some reason. Maybe it looks like somebody probably ripped out a cable and in doing so damaged that particular port. So she wasn't able to plug anything in that port. I got to say I was extremely proud because when she let me know that she had already done the necessary or the normal troubleshooting. She tried multiple cables on that television. She tried those same cables on another television. Together, we reset the TV. We tried another device that wasn't the NVIDIA Shield. And yeah, something is going on with those HDMI ports. I let her know that, one, I don't know exactly what the problem is, but there is a chance that there's some type of damage. And my suggestion at that point was, well, if you don't have an extra TV, which most people don't, or if you don't have a friend that has an extra TV, which again, most people don't, let's try to find something that will allow you to continue using your NVIDIA Shield and still give you a high definition picture. So originally I said, hey, you know what? We need some type of converter box. So let's do that. And you go to Amazon or whatever, you can find HDMI to something. And what I wanted, because again, I wanted her to have a relatively good viewing experience, I wanted HDMI to component. So we were on Amazon and we eventually found something. I said, hey, this might be a good idea. But I remembered that, one, I'm a huge fan of DisplayPort. And two, I recently watched a tech quickie talking about how DisplayPort is probably the superior single device. No, that's not the right word. The superior, let's just say that DisplayPort is the superior connection between DisplayPort and HDMI. And I know my first experience with DisplayPort many years ago. I was at a Best Buy and I went to the store and I said, hey, do you have any DisplayPort cables? And the employee said, well, do you want this like DisplayPort to what? And I was like, I'm not following. And he's like, okay, you want DisplayPort on one end and what end do you want on the other? And I was like, well, I want DisplayPort on both ends. And I'm pretty sure the employee said that they don't make those. And at that point, I was like, okay, I need to go. Because this was 10 years ago. This was in 2013. I remember the Best Buy. I was in Arizona. At that point, I was like, why would they make a standard that can only be used when converted to something else? Makes no sense. Now, if that does exist, please let me know. But it kind of seems like it's a wasted thing if I have to convert this to something else. But fast forward 10 years. And then, yes, I just finished watching that tech quickie video. And I said, hey, maybe it's worth a shot trying to use DisplayPort in this setup somehow. How are we going to do this? I'm not sure. But what prompted me to even want to consider DisplayPort, in addition to all of the past positives that I've experienced and that tech quickie video, is I wasn't too confident with some of the products listed on Amazon's website. for this particular HDMI to composite? Yes. Or component, whatever. You know which one I'm talking about. I wasn't too confident in those products. So I said, you know what? Before we buy anything, before you click that buy now, let me do a quick Google search. And I said, okay, I want DisplayPort to composite. I don't have my glasses on, I'm sorry. And I don't want composite. I want component. Okay, so perfect. So DisplayPort to composite was the other one that we were talking about, which is the one that we don't really care about. Now, I wanted DisplayPort to component. And I know you shouldn't just look at the first thing and say, hey, this is what I want. But I did, and I was wrong, and I shouldn't. But I saw this one, and I said, okay, let me just click on this one and see what comes up. So we're on Amazon's website, and I'm like, okay, let me look at these connectors. I'm like, hey, that's exactly what I want. These connectors over here, that's a DisplayPort shaped connection. At least it would appear so. And I did not read the listing like I should have.
You made a mistake.
So compatible with Nintendo Wii and Wii U. And I said, okay, maybe the Nintendo Wii and Wii U just use a DisplayPort connection. And I said, all right, let's give this a try. So, I scrolled down briefly and I said, yeah, I think this is what we need. And I scrolled a little further and I said, okay, yeah, I think this is what I need right here, or this is what you need. And this is the picture that I did not look at. So this part right here, okay, this lets you know what it's compatible with. And I but I looked at this picture up here and I said, well, I'm not sure what device this is over here, but it's some type of AV device. So I'm going to assume that it's what I need. But no, it's letting you know this apparently is the shape of the Wii U and Nintendo Wii. And I just went to go get a DisplayPort cable, and this one's DisplayPort to HDMI. But what I didn't do, which I should have done that day, is I should have just looked, and they're similar, but they are not the same. So they both have that flat side over here on the left. They have a flat top, a relatively flat bottom, and the right side looks different. I mean, yeah, whatever shape that is very similar to this, but yeah, that is not a DisplayPort cable or a DisplayPort connector right there. So, like I said, completely my fault. I should have looked at the listing a little more closely. But yeah, I don't shop on Amazon. So yeah, never, not putting any blame on my friend at all. She called me for help. I thought I knew what I was doing. I do know what I was doing, or what I was. Yeah, I do know what I did. However, I didn't pay attention the way that I should have. But I think what's bothersome for me, because what we ended up doing, because you might say, well, wait a minute, the NVIDIA Switch has HDMI ports on it, not DisplayPort ports. So what we're going to do is get this cable, which we did get the cable, and then get an HDMI male to DisplayPort female connector, and we did. And we ended up, she got them both in the mail, and she's like, Benjamin, these don't fit. And I'm like, what? They have to fit. No, they don't, because this is not a DisplayPort cable. But I think what's bothersome, and I have not done this, but let me do it right now. Option F, Control F. Command? No, I don't want to do that. Command F. There we go. So I'm looking for DisplayPort, and it doesn't pop up anywhere on this page. So my question really at that point, again, completely my fault, is if I'm looking for a DisplayPort to component, why is this result number one? Why are any of these? I mean, I don't know what that tip is right there, but I'm looking for something very specific. And why are things that are not what I'm looking for the ones that are the first sponsored results? And I get they're sponsored, so they're paying money, but the word DisplayPort doesn't even come up anywhere in the listing. So why, like I get component does. Yeah, component does, but DisplayPort isn't, which is equally important in my query to finding that particular cable. And even if I click on that link right here, that the cable doesn't exist. Yeah, it just doesn't exist. I have not been able to find it. So you'll have DisplayPort to DisplayPort, DisplayPort what to VGA right there. Then you have some HDMI stuff, more DisplayPort stuff, HDMI, mini DisplayPort. Yeah, so yeah, it just I don't know. I don't know why that particular listing was what came up first. So again, completely my fault. I should have read the listing a little bit better. Yeah, I think we ended up buying this one right here, the HDMI male to DisplayPort female, and yeah, it didn't fit. We have DisplayPort to USB-C. Oh, that's kind of a sexy cable right there. Might have to get me one of those. Don't have a reason to use it because I don't have a monitor that has DisplayPort. um, what is that? HDMI. Looks like you can split it or something. So yeah. The cable doesn't exist. So yeah, my question, which I've already asked, is if my query is DisplayPort to component, why is the first result a non-DisplayPort cable? So not important at all, but just hey, wanted to share. I messed up. I apologized profusely to my friend, and she was like, "It's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's free return." So she returned that combination of stuff and got the correct stuff, which is just one of those HDMI to component. In fact, let me just Google that real fast. Yeah, and we'll just. I mean, it wasn't this one, but it was very similar to this one. So yeah, you get your HDMI in, component out, and what I do like about these, at least some of the listings, it's very clear about, hey, this only goes one direction. So HDMI in from your device, component out. Whereas some might have the need for a component input and an HDMI out. One of the listings was that one on this website, and yeah, I don't know where it is, but I did see it that day that the two of us were looking for something like this. But yeah, so this solution works. I was very hopeful to find a DisplayPort to component, but unfortunately we didn't find that. And now she has a solution, so that's all that's important. The next time that I look for something, or I'm asked to look for something, I will make sure I do my due diligence. If it's another DisplayPort issue, I will make sure that, hey, let me just look at this port or at this cable first to make sure, because in my head I knew what it looked like, but clearly I was incorrect. So again, I apologize to her, and this is something that I just wanted to share.